Strategy itself is getting slimmer and more fleet. What it means to do strategy has evolved, and that is an important thing.
We all know that what gets measured gets managed. And if your business strategy is something that is important, then you have to set monthly or quarterly reviews, or whatever time interval makes sense, just to project manage that strategy and make sure it's marching down the right path.
Welcome to the Inside Forbes Councils podcast. Each episode shares transformative insights and advice from members of Forbes Councils, a group of invitation-only communities for successful executives and entrepreneurs. This is Inside Forbes Councils.
Welcome to episode 9 of the Inside Forbes Councils podcast. I'm your producer, Stephen Ganoza. When was the last time you reviewed how you set your business strategy? Today, we're going to do a little strategy checkup. We'll hear from 2 Forbes Councils members who will share their advice on making sure that your business strategy aligns with your business development goals, especially given how the speed of innovation is changing the time horizon for strategic planning. Beth Aubrey is a member of the Forbes Coaches Council and the founder of Aubrey Coaching and Training, an organization that is focused yet flexible in providing training, curriculum design and facilitation, and executive coaching. Sarah will discuss how the time horizon for strategic planning is in flux and will give us a little taste of what we can expect in her upcoming book, Develop and Coach Your Next Generation.
Hello there. I'm Beth Aubrey, the owner of Aubrey Coaching and Training and the writer for the Just Act Like a Pro blog. My role for companies is to help them facilitate progress and navigate change. Today I want to talk to you about a key aspect of the change process, and that is strategy. It's actually one of the major components of my new book coming out, Develop and Coach Your Next Generation. So as a 20-year consultant in the industry, I've had a lot of experience around this topic, seen a lot of things that have gone well for companies and seen a lot of change. How we do strategy has really emerged and changed a lot in recent decades. Let me start, though, with this process by telling you a little story about how strategy has changed. So, I approached the vice president's executive assistant's desk. She pulled the keys out of there, looked at me sharply, and said, "Come with me." Well, this was early in my career. I followed her dutifully. It was my very first week at a big consulting firm, and I was anxious to get started. I wanted to learn as much as I could. So I followed her down the hall. Pausing, she approached a large metal door. She opened it almost reverently. And as she did, I could literally feel the cold air brush past my face as we stepped into the stale darkness. She searched for the lights. Once illuminated, there stood row after row of 10-foot-tall filing shelves lined with binders. "Go ahead and take a look," she urged. Well, I stepped into the room, and it was silent as a stone. But I looked at the walls and the filing cabinets. All the big names in the industry were there, categorized, then alphabetized, then by year. Titles like Strategic Planning Initiative 96, 97, 98, and so on. "This is one of the largest planning processes the firm has ever done," she said proudly, as I stood basically in awe of a 20-foot wall dedicated to one company. The room was austere and daunting to me, but, what did I know? I was new. But I asked a question that I think she thought was dumb. Not trying to come out rudely, I said something like, "What am I supposed to do with my access to this room?" Well, she eyed me as if I'd insulted the whole firm, and she kind of huffed and said, "Like I told you, it's the resource room. This is where we store all the work we've done for our clients. This is where the binders go when the strategic plans are done." Well, later that day, a group of the top flight facilitators and trainers took me to lunch. I mentioned the resource room. "Oh yeah, the binder morgue," laughed one of the guys. He had no levity around the situation compared to what I had heard before. I was a little worried about his regard for resources. The other guy says, "Yeah, that's the place where all your hard work goes to die. Stay out of there, you'll be better off in this business." Over time, the 90s gave on to the 2000s and then the 2010s. Well, the binders slowly and thankfully started to go away. First came CD-ROMs, then flash drives, and now we have a cloud-based delivery. But the change in deliverables is not just about less bulk. Actually, strategy itself is getting slimmer and more fleet. What it means to do strategy has evolved, and that is an important thing. Experts tell us that there's no value in the 10-year strategy anymore because the digital world changes us too fast. Major consulting organizations often consider a 5-year plan to be dead. Even a recent article in Forbes with the quote, "Strategic plans that cast a 5-year look into the future provide a sense of calm." They coax management teams into thinking that there is still time to put a plan into action. So basically, what this article is suggesting is that while some leaders tend to focus on no planning or slow planning, and they're comfortably sleeping along, the marketplace is happily stealing the tires off their equipment, snapping up their best hires, and innovating without them. Also in the article, it says, the reality is faster, more agile players will execute quickly. They'll build the products, they'll refine them, and they'll win. Whoa, that is asleep at the wheel. Okay, well, if long-range big initiative strategic plans are dead, how do we do strategy now? What is the right time horizon? There is a popular notion that's being passed around in consulting circles that really you only need 90-day plans. I do agree with that to a point, but I consider what this is basically as a quarterly effort an excellent strategic check-in. But I'm not sure it's enough to plan for the future in big initiatives such as succession and developing the next generation. I like the idea of the 12 to 24 month cycle, but yes, coupled with those 90-day check-ins as an effective model. So, it often helps at this point to take a step back and think about what is strategy. Realize that the original idea had nothing to do with business binders or executives. Rather, the roots are ancient and they're founded in the military. Think of the great military minds that we consider. What did they do? They identified a target, they collected intelligence, and then they used data to make decisions about how to deploy resources. That's easy to translate to business. I like what author Rich Horowitz says in his book Elevate. Strategy can be fully defined as the intelligent allocation of limited resources to outperform the competition. So, as we think about strategy, let's move forward in terms of what do we do next. So, visionary, long-term strategic thinking is a great quality, but so is the ability to analyze the steps or obstacles in a path and determine how those steps and details can be altered to meet the stated objective. Strategic thinking is a little bit like using a drone to analyze and plan for the crops in a field. The big picture images, captured alone, which is the full vision out there in the field, are really important. But they're of no value if the viewer has no idea what they're looking at or has no idea what changes to the land below are needed to make it more productive. That's the analysis. So, does this mean that only people who have strategic skills as defined by a certain assessment should take the reins of operations of the future? I don't think so. But what I do think is that it's important that all leaders learn to become more strategic in their thinking. And that comes down to a process. For today's short podcast, though, let's just finalize this discussion with a short 4 elements of strategy. These 4 elements are made up of pretty simple questions. Let's start. Question 1 is, what's our organization's vision? Or what's the theory under which we operate? Question 2, what do we do? In other words, what part of this market do we want to be in? What do we want to deliver on? Number 3, how do we do what we do? For example, what are the actions, the adaptations, the models or processes that we create so that we are successful where we want to play, in the market we want to be involved with? And number 4, the 4th element of strategy is, what capabilities do we have to implement now, including skills, team members, adding new or updated resources, or the ongoing training and development for our people? And That's it. It's the first steps in the primer of building your new strategic direction. So, time to get back to the real work. Go out there and reconsider your strategy. Consider the time horizons that make the most sense for your organization, taking old models into account but not feeling stuck with those. The idea of strategy is no longer done in large, painful bursts. Strategy should be seen as an ongoing process. It's not a project. The mentors from that lunch meeting long ago were right. I've seen, as they did then, so many clients getting into overwhelm when they thought of the amount of time strategy was going to take, that after they went through it, they just boxed up their binder and went about business as usual. You cannot afford to do that today, and you don't have to. While strategy's never done, it's an emerging action that must be adapted as your world shifts with it. So, the binder room has been sealed off and archived for good. Well, thanks a lot for chatting with me today around the concept of strategy. I hope this short podcast has been helpful to add those 4 elements into your strategic thinking. For more, check out my new book, Develop and Coach Your Next Generation. Be available coming in January. You can find out more on my website and also join my Act Like a Pro blog and newsletter at sarahbethaubrey.com and find me under the same name on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Are you a successful executive or entrepreneur with insights to share? Learn more about our invitation-only communities at ForbesCouncils.com. Forbes Councils members have the opportunity to collaborate with fellow business leaders to overcome challenges and create new opportunities. Members also have access to support benefits that help them save time and money, and a platform, Community Voice, on Forbes.com, through which they can amplify their voices and exchange ideas. See if you qualify at ForbesCouncils.com.
Ashley Cheeks is a member of the Forbes Business Development Council and the founder of Written Success. Written Success provides entrepreneurs a business plan and pitch documents that are suitable for bank funding, investor funding, and partner searches. She's going to share her process for determining if business owners have aligned their strategy goals to their strategy execution.
My name is Ashley Cheeks. I'm a business plan consultant, and the name of my company is Written Success. My business helps with business plan development for startups and for existing businesses. Usually the goal for my business plan clients is to create a business plan that can be used to secure funding from investors or banks, and sometimes it's designed simply to maximize strategy and growth. One question I get asked often is, how is my strategy? Does this seem like something that can be done and accomplished? And to answer that, more than whether the plan is good or bad, is simply in how you frame the execution of the plan. So there's 3 key questions that I ask that help me understand where that business owner might need help in aligning their business strategy goals to their strategy execution. And time again, I've seen really smart people fall into this trap of just assuming that because they build a solid plan for growth, and then they put it into the hands of their team, that they just assume everybody's running it with it and that it's going to result in this execution phase that doesn't need to be micromanaged. And the reality is that is a fundamentally fatal way to approach growth planning, by assuming that your business development team is going to be able to execute your vision. We've all seen that executive that thinks their business is on track and is growing in the right direction, and then you get a disjointed, disconnected message from other people in the business that say, no, there's nothing happening strategically, we don't have clear direction, and we're not sure what our growth plans are. That disconnect is exactly where a strategy plan and a business plan needs to be crystal clear and inclusive of timelines, dates, goals, responsible parties, and other fundamental pieces to ensure that action is taken on this amazing vision for the company. So one fast way that I'm able to recognize whether a strategy is strong is when the business owner can answer some pretty specific questions about their strategy. And I don't expect the entrepreneur to have all the answers, because sometimes the right answer is, oh, well, my marketing guy knows that, or my finance person can speak to that. So the first question that I'll ask is, who else do we need to involve to be able to talk about the full scope of executing your strategy plan? Which individuals on your team are leading each aspect of the strategy? Who's in charge of your marketing, and have they given their insight to the marketing side of your strategy plan? What about finance? Have they seen what you've put together, and do they agree that it's executable? How does HR feel about everything if you're expanding personnel? And usually this line of questioning tends to reveal whether the business owner truly built this strategy with collaboration, and maybe an indicator of whether they see value already in having team members support the vision, or if this was truly created in a vacuum and might need some extra input to determine whether this is really a feasible growth plan. And so the next step is actually assigning milestones. If you say, we want to be number one on the market, then you have to also add some dated milestones that allow you to gauge and monitor your progress towards that goal. Actually breaking things down to micro actions with deadlines can make the plan less abstract and more attainable. Not to mention it's easier for the team members to actually stay aligned with one another. This is especially so if you do have several departments helping to execute this strategy. And aside from checking on who knows about the goals and whether these goals all have deadlines, the third question that I ask is what rhythm is in place to monitor how the business is progressing on those milestones, and what accountability framework is in place for each team member. We all know that what gets measured gets managed. And if your business strategy is something that is important, then you have to set monthly or quarterly reviews, or whatever time interval makes sense, just to project manage that strategy and make sure it's marching down the right path. Business development doesn't happen on autopilot. You can't set it and forget it. And sometimes business owners don't have the bandwidth to manage things to the detail needed. If someone else on the team can't manage things either, then just hire a strategy consultant to help with execution. Or if planning is the issue, hire a business plan consultant like me to set the team on the right initial path. That way, if you take things out of the abstract and into the real world, where you can actually find success with your strategy through action, then you're way more likely to have a successful strategy plan that will bring you the results you're looking for.
So no matter where you are in your business, it can be worth it to take a step back and make sure that your goals and strategy are aligned, to make sure you're moving fast enough to keep up with the competition, and that you've set your teams up for success. I'd like to thank Ashley Cheeks and Sarah Beth Aubrey for sharing their insights. Be sure to look out for Sarah's new book, Develop and Coach Your Next Generation, which is due out in January. We'll see you on the next episode.
This has been Inside Forbes Councils. Please be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a member of the Forbes Councils and would like to participate in our podcast series, please email your member concierge. If you're interested in joining a Forbes Council, learn more at ForbesCouncils.com.